Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we are doing our week in review, which is extremely late. Again, for some reason, my webcam on my computer stopped working. Don't know why. Turns out it was a privacy setting. Again, I don't know why it switched, but I have it fixed after messing with it for a while. But anyway, let's jump right into this. As per the week of July the 27th through August the 2nd. First, we start with baseball, which is right now the only sport going on. Football, professional football, just started its preseason. It had its Hall of Fame game. So it's just starting into the preseason. But anyway, for baseball, the Yankees lead their division 71-39 is their record. They're 8 games ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays and 13 and a half ahead of Boston, 27 and a half ahead of Toronto, and 34 ahead of Baltimore. In the AL Central, the Minnesota Twins lead with a record of 68-42. The Cleveland Indians are 3 games behind. The Chicago White Sox 20 games behind, sorry. The Kansas City Chiefs 29 games behind, and the Detroit Tigers 34 games behind. In the AL West, the Houston Astros lead with a record of 72-40. The Oakland Athletics are 8.5 games behind. The Texas Rangers are 15 games behind. And the Los Angeles Angels are 16 games behind, with Seattle 25.5 games behind. Pretty solid leads so far in the AL. That puts the Yankees, the Twins, and the Astros in as division winners. And the final the wild card playoff game will be between um, 68, 91. It will be between the Cleveland Indians and the Tampa Bay Rays. As it currently sits, with the Oakland Athletics just outside. In the NL East, the Atlanta Braves lead with a record of 66-46. The Philadelphia Phillies are 7 games behind. The Washington Nationals are 7 games behind. The New York Mets are 11 games behind, and the Miami Marlins are 22 games behind. In the NL Central, the Chicago Cubs lead with a record of 59-51. St. Louis Cardinals are half a game behind. Milwaukee Brewers are 3 games behind. Cincinnati Reds are 7.5 games behind. And the Pittsburgh Pirates are 11 games behind. And finally, in the NL West, the Los Angeles Dodgers lead with a record of 73-40. San Francisco Giants are 16 games behind. The Arizona Diamondbacks are 17 games behind. San Diego Padres are 20 and a half games behind. And the Colorado Rockies are 21 games behind. I think that division's had every other team be in second place. San Francisco's been in second. Arizona's been in second. San Diego. I think even Colorado early in the season. So that gives Atlanta, the Cubs, and the Dodgers the division nods with the wild card playoff between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Philadelphia Phillies or Washington Nationals. So that Phillies-Washington matchup right now is coming in to be really big. Because right now it looks like they'll be playing the St. Louis Cardinals, whichever one of them comes out ahead. Because the next closest team is the Milwaukee Brewers, and they're 2.5 games behind the Cardinals in the same division. And that's currently how baseball is going. Now, let's look at the top science of the week. There it is. I have to go back a ways. There we go. The Arctic is burning and Greenland is melting thanks to record heat. Yeah, this last month, July, was the hottest July in recorded human history. It had settled over Europe and caused major heat waves, resulting even in some deaths. And right now it is currently settled over Greenland, causing a huge ice pack melt and a raise of 30 degrees above normal. Hospitalizations highlight potential dangers of e-cigarettes to teens' lungs. The public trust that scientists work for the good of society is growing. Good! I don't know why it went away. Oh wait, yes I do. Stupidity. Stars may keep spinning fast, long into old age. A 3D map of stars reveals the Milky Way's warped shape. There's more to pufferfish than that goofy spiked balloon. Scientists seek materials that defy friction at the atomic level. Monkeys can use basic logic to decipher the order of items in a list. So, some intelligent thought on the basic levels discovered in monkeys. A new study challenges the idea that the placenta has a microbiome. Tiny magnetic coils could help break down microplastic pollution. The newfound predator may have terrorized the Cambrian seafloor. Huh. I gotta open that one up, see what it says. Newfound predator may have terrorized the Cambrian seafloor with rake-like claws and a toothy mouth. It could snag prey even under the sand. Bottom feeder with a spaceship-shaped carapace, rake-like claws, and a round tooth-filled mouth. The Cambro-Orister, or the Cambro-Raster falcidus, shown in an artist's rendition, hunted for food along the seafloor. The Cambro-Raster falcidus, the predator, was about 13 centimeters long, which, to the tiny prey of the time, likely seemed monstrous enough. Had a pair of jointed limbs that ended in rake-like claws, a round mouth lined with sharp serrated plates, and a broad shield-shaped carapace that covered its head and most of its back, giving it a distinct resemblance to a horseshoe crab or perhaps a spaceship. Hmm. Have now found hundreds of fossils of the ancient arthropod, including one showing the critter's entire body, both front and back, in Canada's Burgess Shell. Well, that's interesting. TESS has found the first ever ultra-hot Neptune. Hmm. Debate over the universe's expansion rate may unravel physics. Is it a crisis? How a 2017 radioactive plume may be tied to Russia and next neutrino research. In a first, physicists recreated the sun's spiraling solar wind in a lab. Positive attitudes about aging may pay off in better health. Readers inquire about measles, vaccine hesitancy, and more. You're only as old as you perceive yourself to be. Mapping how the immortal Hydra regrows cells may demystify regeneration. And that is all of the headlines for the last week on sciencenews.org. Let's look at Science Mag. My science seemed to tell a clear story until I took a closer look. The making of a lumen. GAB3 adapter prevents NK cell dysfunction. With its CRISPR revolution, China becomes a world leader in gene editing, targeting transmissible cancers in animals. The untold story of the Circle of Trust behind the world's first gene-edited babies. And micro wheels on micro roads. Let's see. Slow motion video reveals how ants deliver their painful venom. Artificial intelligence predicts which movies will succeed and fail simply from plot summaries. Perhaps we're too predictive as a race. All right. With that done, let's look at some YouTube channels to look on a bit of science and history and culture. Bon Appetit. It's normally not something I suggest, but it's always something to look into. Because food, it's not just a provider of nutrients and things we need to live, but it's actually quite nice. It should be something everyone looks at. Test Kitchen Talks. The Bon Appetit Test Kitchen answers 19 common burger questions. They do It's Alive with Brad. Brad and Claire Make Donuts, Part 2. The Disaster. Yeah, it's where they are making donuts out of sourdough. And right behind it is Brad and Claire Make Donuts Part 3, The Redemption. And then we've also got Molly Makes Strawberry Shortcake from the Test Kitchen. Biographics. Let's see what's going on here in biographics. We have Hong Xiaoquan, the Taiping Rebellion, self-proclaimed brother of Jesus. We have Augusto Pinochet, the Chilean general, politician, and dictator. And we have Nero, Rome's Antichrist. Some interesting biographies to look at there. Let's see what Fact Fiend has been up to. They have that time Daft Punk told will.i.am to shove it. The Thing prequel had terrible CGI for no reason. They do a Fast and Furious retrospective and a look at the gambler who silenced his wife with diamonds. Let's see, anything here? Nothing in that channel this week to look at. Let's look at TED. Technology, Education, and Design. They've got what's at the bottom of the ocean and how we're getting there. How augmented reality is changing activism. Grief and love in the animal kingdom. Three ways to measure your adaptability and how to improve it. The next big thing is coming from the Bronx. Again. And the story we tell about millennials and who we leave out. I can hear my stomach growl. Anyway, and finally, let's take a look at Veritasium. They have a video on the future of cars, why the future of cars is electric. So that's all some pretty impressive videos to look at if you get interested. A little bit of science and history and culture. Now, let's look at this week in history. July the 27th, 1974, the House begins impeachment of Richard M. Nixon. Of course, he would retire before it could finish. Resign before it could finish, but yeah, they had already started the impeachment on him, so. In 1794, Robespierre is overthrown in France. Maximilien Robespierre, the architect of the French Revolution's reign of terror, is overthrown and arrested by the National Convention. As the leading member of the Committee of Public Safety from 1793, Robespierre encouraged the execution, mostly by guillotine. 1921, scientists successfully isolate insulin. At the University of Toronto, Canadian scientists Frederick Banting and Charles Best successfully isolate insulin, a hormone they believe could prevent diabetes, for the first time. Let's see. What else? All right, not much else on July the 27th. Let's look at July the 28th. July the 28th, 1868. The 14th Amendment adopted. It granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves, is officially adopted into the U.S. Constitution. And that's now where we get the idea of those born of the United States or naturalized. They come in through the process, they go through the testing to become citizens and everything. They become U.S. citizens because of the 14th Amendment. July the 28th, 1976. One of the worst earthquakes in modern history destroys a Chinese city. At 3:42 a.m., earthquake measuring between 7.8 and 8.2 magnitude on the Richter scale flattens Tangshan, a Chinese industrial city with a population of about 3 million people, 1 million people. Let's see, what else do we have? The 28th, 1945, a plane crashes into the Empire State Building. United States military plane crashes into the Empire State Building on the 28th in 1945, killing 14 people. The freak accident was caused by heavy fog. The B-25 Mitchell bomber, with 2 pilots and 1 passenger, was flying from New Bedford, Massachusetts to LaGuardia Airport. July the 28th, 1914. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. 1 month to the day after Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife were killed by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, effectively beginning the First World War. Yeah, the First World War was just a giant clusterfuck of peace treaties and everything that ended up bringing a lot of countries into a conflict that served no other purpose. Let's look at July the 29th. July the 29th, 1958. NASA is created. And we, of course, know 11 years later, we landed on the moon. Would you stop that? Stop. July the 29th, 1921. Adolf Hitler becomes the leader of the Nazi Party. Adolf Hitler becomes the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi. Under Hitler, the Nazi Party grew into a mass movement and ruled Germany as a totalitarian state from 1933 to 1945. July the 29th, 1588, the Spanish Armada is defeated. Off the coast of Gravelines, France, Spain's so-called Invincible Armada is defeated by an English naval force under the command of Lord Charles Howard and Sir Francis Drake. But you got to remember, before the Armada made it too close to England, they were hit by a hurricane, which basically destroyed much of what was that Armada. July the 28th, 1914. Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany and Tsar Nicholas of Russia exchanged telegrams. In the early hours of July the 29th, 1914, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and his first cousin, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, began a frantic exchange of telegrams regarding the newly erupted war in the Balkan region and the possibility of its escalation into a general European war. So remember, Austro-Hungary or Austria-Hungary had declared war on Serbia. Now the next day there's already telegrams to say this could be bad. The 28th of July, 1862, Confederate spy Belle Boyd is captured. Confederate spy Marie Isabella Belle Boyd is arrested by Union troops and detained at the old Capitol Prison in Washington, D.C. This is the first of 3 arrests for this skilled spy who provided crucial information to the Confederates during the war. Well, not that way either. There we go. July the 30th. July the 30th, 1965. President Johnson signs Medicare into law. President Lyndon B. Johnson signs Medicare, a health insurance program for elderly Americans, into law. At the bill signing ceremony, which took place at the Truman Library in Independence, Missouri, former President Harry Truman was enrolled as Medicare's first beneficiary and received the first Medicare card. Let's see. July the 30th, 1974, Watergate affair approaches its climax. Under the coercion from the U.S. Supreme Court, President Richard M. Nixon releases subpoenaed White House recordings suspected to prove his guilt in the Watergate scandal to Special Prosecutor Leon Jaworski. July the 30th, 1956, President Eisenhower signs In God We Trust into law. On this day in 1956, 2 years after pushing for the phrase "under God" inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signs a law officially declaring "In God We Trust" to be the nation's official motto. And we've seen it on our dollar bills ever since. It should obviously, I feel it shouldn't be on there. I'm atheist. I believe in the separation of church and state. It shouldn't be on any of our stuff. And July the 31st. July the 31st, 1975, labor leader Jimmy Hoffa is reported missing. What else happened on July the 31st? July the 31st, 1715. Hurricane sinks Spanish treasure ships. A hurricane strikes the east coast of Florida, sinking 10 Spanish treasure ships and killing nearly 1,000 people on this day in 1715. All of the gold and silver on board at the time would not be recovered until 250 years later. Now we go August the 1st. August the 1st, 1944. Anne Frank writes her last diary entry. It's 3 days before she and her family are arrested and placed in concentration camps. August the 1st, 1914, the First World War officially erupts. 4 days after Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, Germany and Russia declare war against each other. France orders a general mobilization, and the First German Army crosses into Luxembourg in preparation for the German invasion of France. August the 1st, 1981, MTV launches. On this date in 1981, MTV Music Television goes on the air for the first time ever with the words spoken by one of MTV's creator, John Lack. Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll. The Buggles video killed the radio star is the first music video to air on the new channel. And now it's all crap. No, it is. There's no more music that technically plays on it. They need to change the name of the channel. August 2nd, 1990. Iraq invades Kuwait, leading to the first Iraq War. When the U.S. invades Iraq to get it to pull out of Kuwait. August the 2nd, 1934, Hitler becomes Führer with the death of German President Paul von Hindenburg. Chancellor Adolf Hitler becomes absolute dictator of Germany under the title of Führer, or leader. The German army took an oath of allegiance to its new commander-in-chief. Let's see. August 2nd, 1945. Potsdam Conference concludes. The last wartime conference of the Big Three, the Soviet Union, the United States, and Great Britain, concludes after 2 weeks of intense and sometimes acrimonious debate. It would be the last one that Franklin D. Roosevelt went to, because he would pass away not long after. And that's it for this week in history. Now, we will do news, but before we do that, let's look at the top idiots of the week for July the 27th through August 2nd. Ben Shapiro, and he's on the list for, once again, proving he is a dumbass. He did. He was just trying to prove he's some big bad idiot, and yeah, he's a moron. John Hickenlooper, for trying to argue that we needed to stay in Afghanistan. No. We've stayed far too long. Jake Tapper, for trying to frame Bernie as being like Donald Trump. Bernie's nothing like Donald Trump, jackass. Tommy Lauren, for attacking immigrant parents bringing their kids to the U.S. to seek a better life. Kamala Harris, for trying to push a very corporatist Medicare for All bill. John Delaney, for continuing to try and argue that insurance companies are good for us. Really, John? Really? Marco Rubio, for spreading fake edited footage against Ilhan Omar. Art Laffer, for arguing that kids like trying to work for themselves out of mountains of debt. Really, Art? Really? Rudy Giuliani, for trying to sell a war with Iran. Nancy Pelosi, for being a moron and not realizing progressivism is the future of the Democratic Party.
And Donald Trump, once again, for being a complete and utter moron, he is. And that's our idiots of the week. Now, with that done, let's look at the news of the week. On Saturday, from Secular Talk, warmongering psycho Rudy Giuliani says, maybe we should use nukes. Tucker and GOP senator are the perfect, or Tucker and a GOP senator perfect the fake populist tap dance. Desperate Americans go to Mexico for affordable medicine. And Fox brain genius. Kids definitely don't want student debt eliminated. He's not very genius then. From Status Quo. Joe Biden supporter on crippling student loan debt says, if you have debt, pay your bills. MSNBC's brazenly lying about Bernie Sanders' polling numbers. United Corporations of America. In Pennsylvania, if you don't pay the lunch lady, you may lose your kids. Yeah, that was a ridiculous issue going on. That they were threatening to take kids away from poor people. From Democracy Now! How the Uyghur people in China are being surveilled. From TBTV, latest politics. Tulsi Gabbard's $50 million Google lawsuit explained. Tulsi Gabbard says Kamala Harris isn't qualified to be president. From the Rational National, Rational Live, scrolling Twitter and the Q&A. From the Humanist Report, Ilhan Omar brilliantly shuts down an ignorant question. Rashida Tlaib calls for a $20 minimum wage. And Stephen Cox is a progressive who wants to end Mitch McConnell's sad career. From Vice News, Italy is trying to criminalize migrant rescue boats. And we trailed this world boxing champ as he trained for his first bare-knuckle fight. From MCSC, what does the anti-BDS resolution actually do? Tulsi responds to criticisms of anti-BDS vote, which I feel she should have been criticized over. I don't care if resolutions technically do nothing, because it's the fact that she pushed against BDS. House passes bill to provide unlimited funding to Israel. On Sunday, from Status Quo, Bernie Sanders supporter. Bernie is the only candidate who will save us from climate change. Bernie Sanders supporter says MSNBC and millionaire anchors have more in common with Trump than us. And an undecided voter says Democrats and the GOP have triangulated the foundational Black Americans. From TBTV, Joe Biden, Kathy Griffin, Bernie Sanders. Tim does a video on video that talks about all three. From MCSC, how the U.S. Congress killed the BDS movement. Tulsi's busy week. Quinnipiac Poe called us. BDS vote and breaking news and more. And from last week tonight, Boris Johnson. On Monday, from Secular Talk, Biden defends private insurance sharks in the worst strategy ever. CNN is running pro-Kamala ads as news segments. Marco Rubio smears Ilhan Omar with gross, deceptively edited clip. John Delaney releases plan to force you to do stuff. And Bernie goes to Canada for medicine with desperate Americans. From Status Quo, a Bernie Sanders supporter says, build our nation on marijuana. Another Bernie Sanders supporter says, something radical needs to happen in order for things to change. A Joe Biden supporter says, presidential candidate or healthcare lobbyist. Bernie Sanders supporter says the DNC screwed Bernie in 2016. And Hillary Clinton considered Elizabeth Warren for vice president in failed White House bid. From Democracy Now! Baltimore citizens defend their city after Trump insults city and Elijah Cummings. CNN's Victor Blackwell breaks down during a story about Trump's smear. Gunmen killed people at the Garlic Festival. Judge okayed Trump to use military funds to build wall under emergency. Trump claims he and Guatemala reached a third-party nation agreement. Dan Coats resigned from Trump's cabinet. Representative Ratcliffe chosen as Coats' successor. Glenn Greenwald under threat of being arrested by Bolsonaro. 10 heavily armed miners killed villagers in Brazil. Police arrested 1,400 people in Moscow in protest. Police used tear gas and rubber bullets in Hong Kong as protests continue. 20 killed in Afghanistan after a blast by a suicide bomber. UN says attack by renegade general killed 5 in Libya. Britain activists secured by embassy staffers after a protest. T-Mobile and Sprint allowed to merge, perhaps raising prices. Jerry Nadler will try to get Mueller's special counsel information. The first Colombian to win the Tour de France. Also, Baltimore residents say Trump's attack on the city is rooted in racism and white supremacy. Russia arrests nearly 1,400 at opposition protest as leading activist is possibly poisoned in jail. Mass protests in Colombia and abroad decry killings of 500 activists since peace accords. And this is not new, how Trump's Baltimore comments harken back to slavery. From the Rational National, the Bernie campaign slams corporate media in CNN interview. Kamala Harris unveils Medicare of lies. From Philip DeFranco, 16-year-old wins the $3 million Fortnite World Cup. New York Times writes article attacking millennials for going to Disneyland without children. Jake Paul and Tana Mojo supposedly got married. Protests are sparked in Moscow after Russia raises the amount of signatures to get on the ballot and results with an activist potentially poisoned and over 1,000 arrested. Intelligence Director Dan Coats steps down from Trump's cabinet, and John Ratcliffe nominated to replace him. Trump attacks Representative Elijah Cummings and his district of Baltimore, and people push back. Trump then doubles down and then attacks Al Sharpton, in which Sharpton pushes back. From Vice News, is New York City subway actually ADA accessible? And why cycling banned this incredibly addictive, safer Oxycontin? From C-SPAN, President Trump signs the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund bill. From Vox, the dark history of gasoline baths at the border. From MCSC, the Epstein case, exclusive lawyer interview with Michael Santucci, a Florida attorney at law. And from the Patriot Act, Hassan helps Lily Singh get ready for her late night. On Tuesday, from Secular Talk, Bernie's campaign manager calls out corporate media bias on CNN. Biden scorched by a panel of 2020 voters. Trump mega-cucked by Saudi war criminals. Tap Jaker plays gotcha with Rashida Tlaib on BDS. He doesn't get her. From Status Quo, Detroit resident, Jim Crow laws are still keeping black people down. Danny Glover and Cornel West make case for Bernie Sanders to African American seniors in Detroit. Why Bernie Sanders is way more electable than Joe Biden in Michigan. Elizabeth Warren supporter says she espouses policies Bernie Sanders has pushed for years. And Jordan live from the Detroit debate. CNN is the haves and we're the have-nots. From TBTV, Biden versus Trump, Bernie media pushback, and Trump Baltimore tweets. From Democracy Now! Police identified the gunman at the Gilroy Garlic Festival. Had a manifesto to kill white mestizos and white... curse word. I couldn't hear the thing completely, but yeah. Trump doubles down over his attacks on Elijah Cummings, and Baltimore attacks Al Sharpton. Or on his attacks on Elijah Cummings and Baltimore. Then attacks Al Sharpton. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan called Trump's comments outrageous. Congress failed to override Trump's sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia. Further attacks in Yemen. Protesters in Sudan killed. 57 killed in prison gang riot in Brazil. New report shows over 100,000 killed in environmental defense. In Auckland, New Zealand, native people are protesting the building on important areas. And more climate change news on Greenland's ice sheet melting. First of the Democratic debates to begin. Kamala Harris has released her health care plan with insurance, the for-profit insurance in them, and was slammed. Julian Castro has called for a plan to strengthen native rights. Capital One said a hacker gained access to customer data. Trump signed a bill to fund the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. Volunteers in Ethiopia planted 350 trees to tackle climate crisis. The brink of political revolution. Puerto Rico protests continue amid political uncertainty. Examining the future. World outcry grows as Brazil rapidly expands deforestation of the Amazon. 4 immigrants have died at the Stewart ICE jail in Georgia. Advocates want it shut down. And Puerto Rico government in constitutional crisis amid search for new governor. And ICE denied conditions for in their for-profit jail. Then people start dying. The Humanist Report. From the Humanist Report. What to look for on night 1 of the second 2020 Democratic primary debates. Kamala Harris unveils garbage version of Medicare for All that's laughably bad. From the Rational National, National Live, CNN Debate 1 preview. From Philip DeFranco, a scam by rich families that allows their kids to get financial aid gets exposed. Republican Josh Hawley introduced a bill that would set time limits on social media. Prison riot broke out in Brazil that sparked a fire and resulted in multiple deaths and brings the overcrowding in Brazil's prisons to light. From Vice News, how a TV comic is changing the face of Ukrainian politics. From C-SPAN, General Hyten denies allegations of sexual assault. President Trump on most difficult day in office thus far. President Trump, whether he's regretted sending a tweet. President Trump says, if I got fair coverage, then I wouldn't even have to tweet. Fuck you, you lying son of a bitch. President Trump on being called a racist. President Trump says, I think I'll be watching the debates tonight. From Vox, why the U.S. has so many tornadoes. From MCSC, new indictment on Jeffrey Epstein. Washington Post smears Tulsi. Not exactly. The Rogue Rocket. From the Rogue Rocket. Organ harvesting. Chinese propaganda and dance. The mystery of Shin Yun. And from Frontline PBS. For Sama. The official trailer. On Wednesday, from Secular Talk, Elizabeth Warren was vetted to be Hillary's VP. Bernie highlights death from lack of Medicare for all in a powerful video. Is this pro-Trump song the worst of all time? And Kyle talks to Hill TV about Bernie, Ilhan, Pelosi, and more. From Status Coup, live from pre-debate Green New Deal rally in Detroit. Bernie Sanders comes out swinging at debate, and supporters love it. Did CNN black out Bernie Sanders supporters at the debate yesterday? Bernie Sanders wins the CNN Democratic debate with, "I wrote the damn bill." And Jordan live from epic Joe Biden Detroit debate watch party. Yeah, it wasn't really that epic. From TBTV, CNN Democratic debates. Who did well, who did badly, and who should quit now? From Democracy Now!, 10 candidates took the stage on night one of the CNN debates. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren pitted against the centrist Democrats. Detroit activists rallied before the debates. North Korea launched 2 short-range ballistic missiles. Amnesty International calls on Egypt to end cruel and inhumane conditions in their prisons. General John Hyten faced questioning since he was the named replacement to be Joint Chief of Staff. State delegate in Virginia interrupted a Trump speech for Trump's racist statements, which I approve of. Interrupt that fucker. Trump continued to attack Elijah Cummings as a report comes out revealing that Trump's behavior. California governor signed a law requiring certain political positions require at least 5 years of tax returns released. New York Board of Elections claimed Melissa Katz won the district attorney race. Kentucky residents support miners in the blocking of a railway owned by Black Jewel, which recently went bankrupt. A teeter-totter that fit across the Mexico-U.S. wall allows children on both sides to play together. We also have Sanders and Warren tout progressive vision for 2020 as second Democratic debate kicks off. Mehdi Hassan says, "What is the point of John Hickenlooper?" Well, honestly, I have to agree with him. Why the Democrats' foreign policy debate fell short. There was no discussion about endless war. And we don't want another President Obama. Activist urges Democrats to revisit immigration policies. From the Rational National, Bernie stomps Tim Ryan. "I wrote the damn bill." CNN debate 1 breakdown. Bernie and Warren dominate. And the Rational Live debate 2 preview. From the Humanist Report, what to look for on night 2 of the second 2020 Democratic primary debate. A debate breakdown. These are the winners and losers of the second Democratic debate. Sanders shuts down Ryan at the debate for Medicare for all. "I wrote the damn bill." Elizabeth Warren hilariously antagonized John Delaney throughout the Democratic debate. Sanders and Warren team up to take down John Delaney at the debate on health care. And Bernie Sanders had no time for John Hickenlooper's stupidity at the debate. From Philip DeFranco, Carissa Pinkston under fire for trying to proclaim she's transgender after making a controversial remark. People are freaking out over Mario Lopez, who claimed that kids shouldn't be able to transition. Grant Thompson, a YouTuber known as the King of Random, died on a paraglider accident. And DeFranco looks at how the progressives were against the centrist in the debates. And the ACLU filed a lawsuit against Trump, saying that his administration is not following court order to prevent separations. I wish they fired it at him. From Vice News, Boris Johnson helped create the Brexit mess. Now it's his job to clean it up. Cory Booker isn't afraid to talk about racism on the trail. From C-SPAN, Fed Chair Powell announces interest rate reduction. And from C-SPAN, or from NPR, analysis of night 1 of the second Democratic debate. On Thursday, from Secular Talk, CNN Democratic debate breakdown from night 1, 7:30-19, as well as CNN Democratic debate breakdown. CNN Democratic debate night 2, 7/31/2019. Bernie goes beast mode on anti-Medicare for All Democrats. Elizabeth Warren easily owns awkward soccer dad John Delaney. Tulsi Gabbard lights up Kamala Harris and rocks the debate stage. From Status Coup, Bernie Sanders supporter told, "Take it up with CNN," while cops blocked them from cheering at the debate. CNN's cameras immediately cut away to avoid showing Bernie Sanders supporters at the Democratic debate. Joe Biden supporter on the fence after the Democratic debate, but at least the t-shirt was free. And a Bernie Sanders supporter on CNN intentionally blocking supporters at the debate says, 2016 all over again. From TBTV, Democratic debate night 2, winners, losers. From the Rational National, Tulsi exposes Kamala's shocking record on stage. And from Democracy Now!, 10 more Democrat hopefuls take the stage in Detroit. Immigration rights activists interrupted Joe Biden with a chant of 3 million deportations, which was during his time as VP. Other protests at the debate with some chanting was Fire Pantaleo, which was chanted at Bill de Blasio. New York City's coroner ruled a transgender woman died in prison from complications from epilepsy. Wrong word I typed in there. Syria's government has stepped up bombing and shelling on civilian locations. Treasury Department puts sanctions on Iranian diplomat. Sudan's military rulers have closed schools indefinitely. Massive heat dome that was in Europe has settled over Greenland, raising temperature 30 degrees above normal. 66 people in Texas seek medical attention after the ExxonMobil plant explosion. Federal Reserve cutting interest rates for the first time in 11 years. Trump wants the Navy to rescind medals from Eddie Gallagher. Ricardo Rosao confirms his replacements. Dolores Huerta and Cornel West responds to Democratic debate as Biden and Harris face harsh scrutiny. This country was formed by immigrants, says Dolores Huerta, who takes down Biden on immigration. Cornel West says the media's liberal self-righteousness against Trump isn't enough. Cornel West also says Obama was better than Trump, but still complicit in America's imperial expansion. From the Humanist Report, debate breakdown. These are the winners and losers of the second Democratic debate, night 2. Tulsi Gabbard brilliantly puts Kamala Harris's awful record on blast at the debate. Tulsi Gabbard exposes fatal flaw in Kamala Harris's fake Medicare for All plan. And Cory Booker rips Joe Biden's atrocious record on criminal justice. From Philip DeFranco, when Bedsha's video broke the views record, YouTube had stayed silent. But the question is the use of buying ads as a way to up his views. Or is it racism? So, a bit of a controversy going on there. Ninja leaving Twitch to exclusively stream on Mixer. I don't really care. I don't watch Ninja. Whatever. Tulsi Gabbard calls out Kamala Harris at the debates in the post-debate. Harris attacked Gabbard, in which Tomi Lahren jumped in on it. And the Sudan military fires upon school-age protesters. From Vice News, the war over natural boner pills. How Democrats can take back Michigan in 2020. From C-SPAN, State Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calls the Senate a legislative graveyard. And from Vox, how scientists colorize the photos of space. I really can't talk. From MCSC, Kamala campaign smears Tulsi after she exposes them. And a new Tulsi ad uses Kamala's words against her. From Rogue Rocket, webcam hacking, myths, truths, and protecting your privacy online. From NPR Politics, analysis after night 2 of the second Democratic debate. And on Friday, from Secular Talk, Tap Jaker compares Bernie to Trump with relentless right-wing framing. Failed candidate John Delaney bizarrely comes out for terrible trade deal. Hickenlooper says, we have to be in Afghanistan to protect women. No. Saudi Arabia, maybe. And Marianne Williamson comes out against Medicare for All. From Status Quo, Joe Biden supporters flee his debate watch party. Bernie Sanders on fire, even as CNN appears to attack him. From TBTV, the Tulsi Gabbard smeared on The View for questioning Kamala Harris's record. From the Rational National, new map shows Bernie's massive lead from coast to coast. Yeah, it really does. It's amazing. They had to make a separate map that removes Bernie from it just so they can show what the other candidates have. From Democracy Now! Senate has sent Trump a 2-year budget. Trump has formally ended U.S. participation in the INF Treaty. God, he's an idiot. He is an idiot. Trump's ratcheting up trade war on China by adding tariffs again. Puerto Rican politicians delay vote to confirm Rosello's successor. Newly revealed body cam footage of officers in Texas laughing as Tony Timpa lay dying and mocking his dead body. Dozens killed in 2 attacks in Yemen. Soldiers opened fire on protesters in Sudan. Rwanda opened border with Democratic Republic of Congo despite Ebola. Trump supposedly close to a deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan, like they'll really keep it. July was the warmest month on recorded human history. Senate confirmed 13 more of Trump's federal judges. But a federal judge blocked a law that allows the Ways and Means Committee from getting Trump's tax returns. Trump administration separated more than 900 children from their parents since being told not to do so. Texas Congressmember Will Hurd will not seek re-election. The Nixon tape that has Reagan calling African Americans monkeys. Climate change or climate system getting unhinged as massive heat wave causes record heating of Greenland ice sheet. Ex-health insurance executive. Industry is using decades-old scare tactic to fight Medicare for all. You're going to kill me. Body cam video footage shows Dallas officers mocking man as he died on the pinned to the ground. Tony Timpa. Climate scientist Jason Box says our economic system is crashing with reality. And I feel anxious. The explosion at the Texas oil refinery highlights uneven impact of energy production. From the Humanist Report, Bernie Sanders campaign manager lays out the problem with corporate media. And Ben Shapiro destroys America with his stupidity and nonsense. Vice News. From Vice News, Trump doesn't understand how A$AP Rocky's Swedish assault trial works. And behind the book about the desires and sex lives of ordinary American women. From C-SPAN, Trump on withdrawal of Representative Ratcliffe as the Director of National Intelligence nominee. From Vox, where Manhattan's grid came from. And from MCSC, Tulsi calls out MSNBC shilling for Kamala Harris. Tulsi hits 130,000 qualification for the second set of debates. I think he's got a hard-on for Tulsi. Honestly. She's not bad as a candidate, but I still prefer Bernie. And from NPR, when U.S.-Iran tensions turn deadly. And that is our news of the week. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. I'll see you all again in the next video, but until then, later.